Next up, we're going to take this beautiful flame maple billet and drop it on a Tele body. Wipe down some naphtha to see what the grain looks like. You can see it's got a little bit of run out on the top there. We'll then take this over to my bandsaw. I've got a Laguna 16 HD bandsaw. I do a lot of top processing. I buy a lot of billets and then cut a top up, sell one, and keep one for myself. It's one of the ways I self-fund my business and allow me to sort of get tops for cheaper. We'll then take this over to my WoodTech 25-inch dual drum sander. We'll run this through a bunch of times, get it nice and flat. It's already got an edge on it from when I took it through the bandsaw. We'll glue this up. I've got some cheap Harbor Freight clamps. These are those aluminum parallel clamps that really don't work all that well. Got a little bit of tight bond in a easy application bottle. We'll rub this on, make sure it's on the piece correctly. Push this together, and then I rub the glue on the other side of the board so it's on both sides. We'll get the clamp set. Clamp this down. And I've gotten good enough now where I can sort of just pinch the boards together to get them flat. And in the middle here, it's not sitting right, and I used a little bit too much glue. So we'll get a wet rag and we'll wipe down the board. I've got a Harbor Freight deep reach clamp. We're just going to clamp down the center here. I've got a little card to protect the top and the back. The back has a little felt pad on it. So I'll crank this down, make sure it's flat. And then we're going to do a practice run of the yellow and red burst. So I drew out an outline. Wanted to see what this looked like on the wood. And originally I had done this video for a different purpose, and so I'm repurposing some content here for you guys. A lot of guys were asking about this top when I flashed it a couple weeks ago. So I've got some Angelus leather dies. You can purchase that in the link below. I get a little bit of a payback on that, so thanks for helping me out there. Now what I'm trying to do is figure out where the figure is the nicest. So there's a little bit of run out on top. I want to avoid that. And this is just playing. A lot of times I've developed my skill in doing this from just playing around. So the way I'm applying this red is I'll put the yellow base down first, and then I'll apply sort of a looping red going across, and I'll sort of draw that further in. And you can see as I'm applying now the yellow back over the red, I begin to sort of wash the colors in. So this is a practice run. I brought that yellow down again, and I'm merging the yellow and the red here. So I get a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, a bit of red. It looks pretty good. And again, like I said, this was a practice run. Trying to see what the figure's going to do, how I wanted to sort of apply this. This piece of wood has some really nice grain lines, nice figure lines there. You could see it right sort of in the center of the board, and that carries through up to the top. Wasn't as strong in the center. I think if I had done this again, I may have flipped it so that those strong lines are in the center. So we glue it down. I actually bound the body. I was planning to do a Les Paul copy of this, so like a Tele Les Paul. It's on my list of projects to do. So we'll sand this down to 320. Got a little bit of color left there. And we're again going to put on yellow, Angelus yellow, straight from the bottle, no dilution. I've got some really wide strokes here. And I'm again doing it sort of in a teardrop fashion. So from the neck all the way down in sort of a triangle teardrop. Then we'll come back with some red. And so I've got a nice deep red center, or red outer, and then I've got more of a yellow center. And I'm doing it this way because I want to avoid a whole ton of orange. So I really want to try and fade this from a red to yellow tightly. I don't think I really succeeded, but just showing you some of my attempts and tests here. So we're doing that same technique as before. We put the yellow down first, then we come back with the red, and in those circles, then we start drawing that color to the center. And I now come back with some yellow and begin taking that red a little bit further into the center. So it's like watercolors where you're mixing, we're just doing it with the dye. Really wanted a hard red edge, which I think I've got, and then sort of a yellow fade. Historically, I'd sort of called these poor man's bursts. I couldn't spray properly when I first started doing these, and applying the dyes like this, I could get the same effect. And I actually think this effect is better. It actually gets into the wood, so you get more reflection of light, a little bit different view. So we'll come back with the yellow on the center and a red and just sort of wash the colors in again. And then lastly, I come back with yellow on the red once more and sort of try to fade all this stuff back. Try and get it all the nooks and crannies. And then the secret trick is to pull a little bit of the color out. You get the wood to pop a little bit more. It looks a little bit better. So I've got some open discs that I got from Klingspor. And what I'll do is I'll just sand this out. This is 800 grit. It's like a fine steel wool essentially. Doesn't build up. And then lastly we'll come back with some steel wool and we'll pull whatever out is left. And you can really see those figure lines to the center of the body. Really wild. I think I probably should have flipped this as I was playing with it. So we'll vacuum this up. One of the last tricks then is once it's all clean, come back with the yellow in the center, and this usually gets it to pop pretty good. And that's what I'm talking about right there, is that yellow just gets that one extra little bit of pop. I'll wash in the colors here. You can see that sort of corner needs a little bit more love, and I got it clear right there. So this is just washing all the colors in. We're then going to take this outside and use some Mohawk sanding sealer. And we'll put a couple mist coats of the sanding sealer on. Helps lock in that color. What happens if you put something really heavy on, you get the color to lift out and it bleeds and runs and it looks terrible. So I'll do a couple mist coats of sanding sealer and it's looking really good here. Beautiful coloring. And then we're going to come back with some 2K from Eastwood. You guys saw this in my PRS kit, and I wanted to use a little bit of this on this body as well. So we're going to put a mist coat of this first on as well. This 2K is a little bit toxic. I've got a respirator on, and I should have put my long sleeve shirt on and a glove, but I did not do that this time. But here we're just putting a mist coat on, an even mist coat. Lock in those colors, lock in everything so it doesn't bleed and run. Just a real light spray. And then about 30 minutes later, we'll come back and put on a much heavier coat. And we'll do that 2 more times to build the coat. We'll then go ahead and sand it down. This is 320 and then 800 grit and get an even coat on it. And then I went back outside and applied 1 more coat, let that dry for 3 more days. And then that's this sanding here. So you put 1 coat on, get it really nice, sand it back, put 1 light coat on, and then sand it again, and then you're ready to buff. Eastwood stuff is really easy to use. You just got to wear the right safety equipment. And in this process, something fell on the top because my son decided to knock something off my workbench. So I had to do a little bit of fill here. Did not film that. But once we get sanding all the way down, we'll start at 320, 800. We'll then go to 1,000 and 1,500. And then after that, at 1,500, we are all done. So I've got my custom-made buffing wheel that I built here. Got my GoPro on. And looking for any fine scratches. If there's any fine scratches, I have to go back and sand down one more time. What I like about this product is that you can dry sand it. You don't have to wet sand it. Sometimes wet sanding becomes a huge mess. You get the wood to swell, which becomes a massive problem. We'll rock the body back and forth here. Buffing here took me about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And you can see the great look it's already getting, that nice wet look. This 2K is a nice thick application. It builds nicely, real easy to use. And we'll go back and forth and buff this, like I said, for about 5 to 10 minutes. Moving it back and forth, making sure you're not burning it in. And as you go back and forth, it really starts to shine. So speed this up here a little bit. Got my fat belly. Keep it nice and tight on the buffing wheel. And you can see it's really starting to look good here. So we've got 4 pictures here from left to right. Red is a little bit hard to capture on a digital camera. Doesn't look all that perfect here. Looks better in person. It's got this nice deep wet look. This was a limba body that I stained brown and then added that cream binding. And I'll do a assembly video here and show you guys what it looks like done. So thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video.